Hey there, everybody. My name's Laurie Knudson, and I'm here with two of my friends. We are all Minnesota Realtors who then moved to Florida, and we tend to cover the Gulf Coast. So I'm going to start out with my top left, which would be Sharon. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Sharon Decker. I am with Remax Nautical in Cape Coral, Florida, and also with Remax Results in Minnesota. I moved to Florida about 2.5 years ago. I spent pretty much all of my life, well, I have spent all of my life in the Midwest. I grew up in the snow belt, and when you do that, you have a very, very short summer. So I was tired of living my life within 3 months of everybody squishes everything into that 3 month period. And coming down to Florida, every day is another sunny day in Florida. I'm enjoying it.
Beautiful. The blue skies are amazing, aren't they?
Yes.
And I also have Danella with me. So, Danella, go ahead.
Hi. I'm so sorry.
I'll edit. Maybe we should leave that in, everybody. I don't know. That's
Absolutely. The bloopers.
for number one.
Right. Okay. Hi, I'm Danella Swanson Munoz, and I also grew up in Minnesota, lived there my whole life until about 3.5 years ago. Came down to the Tampa area, and I am with Sun K Real Estate in Tampa Bay and with Counselor Realty in Minnesota, serving the Twin Cities.
Gotcha.
Um, I think I'm the baby of the group as far as experience. Next month will be my 20-year anniversary in real estate. So I love still serving both states and being able to, like you said, Sharon, escape those cold, really unbearable winter months.
hmm Yep. Thank you. And I actually have worked with both of you. So it's kind of a neat little trifecta we have here. So again, Laurie Knudson, I am from the Minneapolis area, but more western Twin Cities of Monticello, Wright County. More recently, I did move way up north, which not there in the winter too much. But like all of us, we fly back and forth quite a bit. So we are able to serve both communities. And I am right between these two. I picked Danella to the north and Sharon to the south. I am in the Sarasota, Venice area. So we cover all the way from Danella on down on the Gulf Coast, all the way down. So Danella, Tampa, Tampa Bay, Clearwater, St. Pete. Then you come into Siesta Key area, which starts to pick up Sarasota and follow that down to Venice, which is actually where I live. And then keep going down, you get to Punta Gorda, and then you get down to Fort Myers and all the way down to Marco Island. So we serve a huge swath of the Gulf Coast. And like my two cohorts here, I was basically at age 50 telling my husband, I don't know where you're going to be when we retire, but I'm going to be in Florida and I hope you join me. So, of course, what that looks like for us all is we do travel back and forth. We're all still licensed in Minnesota and in Florida, and we have our groups in both locations to assist us. I'm with Legacy Home Group out of Monticello, and I'm with Keller Williams in Venice, Florida right now. And it's just been really, really nice because in the winter, it freezes everybody's you know what off in Minnesota. And it tends to slow down a little bit, but I'm able to keep up with what I need to do and traveling back for holidays and babies being born and all that stuff. And then in the winter is when it's hopping down in my area of Florida. So I'm one of those crazy people that doesn't want to retire yet and just wants to keep working. And I think would you gals agree that it is all year round really for us that we get to keep busy then?
For sure.
Absolutely. I love that fact, because we can flip-flop between the states and we know when season is. I mean, obviously, our season in Florida is completely opposite of that in Minnesota. So it works out really well.
And we can relate. I mean, talk about what you've been relating to with your customers. I found some actually from my same area. They live in St. Cloud and I was in Annandale, and we found each other online because we're doing talks like this. So you're able to relate to your customer, yes?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think we all know what it's like to just feel like you just need to get out of the cold. And, especially, yeah, I think bingo, you hit that magic number 50, right? So once that hits, I think we start thinking, we don't necessarily need to stay here through the whole winter.
And that was 12 years ago now. So, and he came with me, thank God. So Sharon, we're gonna start with you, starting in the south. I love the Marco area, Fort Myers, Bonita Springs, all the way up to Punta Gorda, which is knocking on my little area then.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me what made you pick that area. Tell our audience.
Well, I did research and I really looked at the weather factor because obviously the more north you go, it gets a little colder. There was snow in Florida last year, a significant amount up in the north
Oh,
part of Florida. And
I
anyway,
got cold
so
thinking about it.
right, and historically speaking, up until 2022, there had been really no hurricanes that were of devastation in Southwest Florida. So we signed the contract to build our house. The next day, Ian hit, and we did not know what was going to happen. So, anyway, everything really stayed on target. It was 18 months to build, which is really crazy because in Minnesota, you can build a house in 3 months, and down here, it takes about 18. But everything was on target. And, and that changed a lot of things for the Florida market, which we will get into a little bit later in our discussion. But so I picked the fact that it was an affordable place to be, good weather, and not a lot of hurricanes until then.
Until then.
Mhm.
And you cover those areas. Are you largely, is everybody that you're serving on the water or a lot in the country too?
There's really a mix. It just really depends on, your comfort level, number one. I think the hurricane made a lot of people think things out. Flood insurance has a big factor in that. Um, Again, the flood insurance, I think people are super scared about. Now, last year we didn't have any hurricanes. The year before we had two. But flood insurance, you can assume policies. So, when you get into certain areas, people think that flood insurance is ridiculous. Well, if you have to get a new policy, it is. But if you can assume one, you can save probably three-quarters of what a new policy would be.
Hmm. Right,
Well, and
right.
also, depending on how far away you are from the beach, not everybody needs to have a flood policy.
Right.
And depending on your construction too. So that in and of itself doesn't need to make anybody feel like, oh, I just wouldn't be able to afford Florida.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about that affordability part. And I'm so glad we're going to come back to the flood zone with you and me, Danella, too. But affordability wise, I think a lot of people just kind of get choked up and struggle to swallow because they don't think that they can afford maybe an early retirement or a part-time look at the season. Um, Affordability, talk about affordability a little bit, Sharon.
Yeah, affordable. So again, it really depends on the area that you're choosing. The more north, well, for me in my area, kind of the more north you are, the more affordable it is. You start ticking down to that Naples Marco Island, yeah, it's definitely a lot smaller area. So there's more homes and yeah, it's just more money. You go into Naples and you definitely, you've got manicured boulevards and everything. Obviously you pay for those things.
Mm-hmm.
So Cape Coral, I mean, they are expecting my city to grow from 200 to 400,000 in the next 10 years.
Well, and
Now I
Cape Coral
know.
is cool because that's where I started looking was Cape Coral.
Mhm,
So I learned a
mhm.
little bit about your area. And there's all sorts of canals because Cape Coral is basically a canal planned city, I
It
would
is,
say.
Lori, there's actually over 400 miles of canals, which makes it more canals than Venice, Italy.
Yeah.
But you have to realize too, not all of those canals lead to the Gulf of Mexico. A
And
lot
some
of
of them are
them,
freshwater,
right, right. So you really
not
have to know the difference and
right.
when we're purchasing. So
And some people are just fine having something that they can take a small boat around and just go visit their neighbors and not get out to the Gulf. A lot of people
exactly.
need to be out to the Gulf. So very, very cool.
And truly, even depending on where you're located, some areas it can take you, like where I'm at, about 80 minutes to get out to the Gulf. As opposed to Southwest Cape, sometimes you're out within 5 minutes. So
Right, right.
Southwest,
And
Southeast. Hmm.
and so you picked that area particular because you started out by saying temperature. You knew it would be warmer. And I do think it is kind of Tampa on down. There's a and you get like a 5 degree increment each time you're going further down. You could go all the way down to the Keys. And anything else that hit you there? Did you already have family there? Did you have points of interest that you were wanting to hit there?
Yeah, we had some friends here, so I mean, we knew a handful of people and everything just seemed to fit right. And so, yeah, this is what we chose, and we're not sorry at all.
Right. I'm not sorry either. Um, and Danella, I know you could second that, third it, whatever. Before we leave you, Sharon, let's talk about HOAs. Each of us should touch on HOAs a little bit.
Yes, there is a lot to consider. Number one, we get a lot of people that want to come down and rent. They want to rent their place out when they're not here. A
Yes.
lot of the HOAs are very limited. You may be able to only rent out 3 to 4 times a year. So if you're looking to do Airbnbs, you're going to look at single family homes. Another factor with HOAs, again,
Cape Coral is very friendly to single family rentals, short-term rentals, right?
correct, because Cape Coral does not have as many like gated communities such as Fort Myers, or you head down south and you look into the gated communities, and that's where you're going to have a lot of restrictions. And the HOAs themselves are very different. The more amenities you have, the higher the HOAs. Like there's the place that you and I spoke about, the what was Pelican Sound Golf and
Yes.
River Club.
That I have a very good friend who lives there and it's in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
highest demand. Tell us about that place.
Super cool community. So you can golf, and you have a direct golf access to the Gulf of Mexico. Very unique because I mean, I think it may be one of the only ones that has that, as opposed to maybe some of the manufactured home communities. I know that there are a few of those, but it's a really, really cool community. However, you have buy-in amounts for those clubs.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to keep a dollar amount at their clubhouse every year. They're very spendy, so those are things that you need to look at before you're considering those types of HOAs.
And it's
Um,
really tailored to those very serious golfers, right?
Absolutely.
And
Golfers
then
and, wanting to boat, wanting to
it's
get
not
that
a
direct.
marina. There's not a marina there. It's you can put in your boat or you can take their little ferry to Lover's Key, right?
Right. So,
So,
super cool things like that. Also you have to be, considering some communities have what they called a community development corporation, where when they built that community, they will not charge the builder up front for what we call whack and sack, the water and sewer. So it's then divided up by all the owners in that association, and it's paid for over an amount of time. So,
oh, that surprises people, doesn't it?
it
Yeah.
does.
They're not
And
ready for that one.
not
Yeah.
at all. So when you're looking and you're like, why is this HOA so much more than that HOA? Those are some of the reasons.
Yep. And
Mhm.
then real quick before we move on to Danella, are you ready to go next? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I guess I can go. I'm in between, aren't I? Tell us about how the rebuilding after Ian is going, because I consider it, I'll jump in here. They know how to handle hurricanes down here, just like Minnesota knows how to handle a snowstorm. Like, and I know
Absolutely.
that's two
Very
different
true.
things, but they are
Yeah.
good at it, aren't they?
They are. I mean, Sanibel Island was completely shut off, and their bridge got built with it. I don't even know. I mean, it was quick because they had to get people off, on and off. Fort Myers Beach, if you all knew what that was like beforehand, it was very, community and little older homes, and pretty much all of those are wiped out. So Fort Myers Beach is actually a separate town, and they have a task force that they have instilled, to rebuild, making sure, the homes are now being put up on stilts. And Some of the littler lots, they're not so conducive to building those small little tiny homes anymore. So there's a lot of larger companies going in. They're building, their resorts and things. So Fort Myers Beach will never look the way it was. The pier is actually being started, I think, this fall. They're going to start that. But they've done a phenomenal job with the beach itself. The beach is super wide. It's gorgeous. Some of the, the bars and restaurants are coming back now. And, so there's all of that. As far as, I'm going to just take this a step and go into going back to 2019 to 2022. Home prices increased 66%. People were moving down here like crazy because everybody was working from home. So when you have that kind of increase in the market, I've been in it 36 years. I've seen, what you always think you've seen it all and then something else. So you have those kind of increases. You knew that there was going to have to be somewhat of a correction. You had Wall Street Journal saying that Cape Coral was the worst market in the United States.
I saw
Everybody,
that. It made me so
yeah,
mad.
I was happy.
Oh,
I turned that around. I'm like, you guys, I said, this is the best advertising that we could possibly have because now all of those investors, all of the buyers that wanted to buy in like 2022, that's why we built. We could not compete with money coming from the East and West Coast. They had so much cash. So we're like, okay, we're going to build. So when those buyers that were getting beat out, 50, 60, $70,000 in multiple offers, guess what? It is now a buyer's market.
come
People,
on down, right?
For
Yeah.
sure.
absolutely. So that was the best thing that Wall Street Journal could have done for us.
That's
Um,
interesting. I didn't look at it that way at all because I was
yeah,
just kind of like, hey, quit picking on Cape Coral.
yeah, yeah. And
It's
Lee
important.
County as a whole, when we take last year's market to this year's market, there's 1,800 less. And I'm taking Lee County because that's the county that's kind of central to where I service. Um, there's 1,800 less listings.
Yeah.
And now, this first quarter, we have seen prices pretty much stabilize, if not in some markets, go up a little bit.
Depends
So,
on price range, right? Yeah, it's
right.
very price range driven. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, it makes it really exciting for buyers coming down because when we look, we could be looking at 20 homes. I'm definitely a very good power shopper when it comes to houses. And then we go back. We can take another look at that house or those two or three houses that you liked and make those decisions. But yeah, it's actually a really good market for buyers. Everybody says it's, oh my God, it's the worst market. Well, for who? It's always a
Right.
market, and you always have to say, okay, for who?
Well,
Right.
and how do
That's so
you
true.
think, both of you, how does it compare to Minnesota that's kind of hopping yet? Minnesota's
Hmm.
got a good drive right now for market. So if you
It
take
does.
that good drive and transfer it down to here, where all of a sudden now you have a real chance, right?
Right. Well,
Danella,
and
hit
I
on
think,
that. Yeah,
I
you
want to
got it.
get
yeah, and
Danelle to comment on
oh,
that.
sorry. Yeah, I mean, in my area, I mean, really, there's almost like split market. There's like the single family market is really a lot more stable, and it's the condo market where the huge opportunities really lie. And when the single family market, that competes also with a lot of new construction, and so when you were talking about HOAs, we have HOAs that vary so much, and based on if it's a single family development, a lot of times that HOA might only be 100 or $100 to $300 a month, which if you have that access to the community and the pool and those amenities, a lot of people, that's exactly what they're looking for. So when it comes to the condo market, depends on the age of that, and now that we have had to have the milestone inspections and the requirements for the reserves, that's where we really saw those HOA fees jump. And so that's caused them to be a lot more affordable to actually buy the condo themselves.
The
So,
prices of the condo came down to, okay.
mhm.
So they're
Yep.
they're and and I think in Florida and all of our areas and we got hit worse by Milton recently. Venice, it was ground zero. That was wonderful.
Hmm.
But
Right.
some of those condos have, I think you were alluding to it, but they had structural
Hmm.
corrections that they had to make. And so there were
Yes.
huge assessments.
Yes,
So
for sure.
Danella, let's keep going with you. And do you have any questions for Sharon before I head over to you? And we'll just jump right.
Oh, not really. I mean, I love that area, and I actually, before I actually moved down here, I spent a lot more time in both, in Cape Coral, Fort Myers, and I do love the uniqueness of Cape Coral, and I think that's a particular lifestyle that people are looking for, is that canal lifestyle, right? But so many renovations in Fort Myers, with the downtown and all of the kind of bars and shopping, and they really did a lot of upscale. Well, not totally upscale, but just like it doesn't feel as old as it did before, right?
Right.
It's got some renovations. They went ahead and took advantage of that.
Yeah.
Danella, do you have the same thing that Sharon's dealing with in Cape Coral in particular, and a lot in Punta Gorda too? I think people are still looking for that 3-bedroom home with a pool and pool cage. And if it's
Mhm.
on that waterfront, all the better.
Yep.
And then they do rent it out, short-term rental.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Yeah.
have needs I mean, that's a huge hook for people, right?
For sure. I think, there are always going to be people looking for short-term rental opportunities. I would say that's pretty saturated right now. So it's not as easy to get into that and, net the numbers that most investors are wanting to carry. But, and then there are also certain areas that the short-term rentals are not allowed because of how saturated they are. And so that is, especially St. Pete, super popular there. And it's just a matter of looking at the actual neighborhood that it's in, double checking on whether it's even an option there. HOAs, a lot of times, they have their different rules. Sometimes they allow the short-term rental. Sometimes they don't allow any rental at all until you live there for 1 year, or sometimes even 2 years. So it's really important, if you are looking at wanting to do some short-term rental, that all that homework be done up front,
Gotta have a
specific to that
realtor.
property.
They
For
gotta
sure.
have.
That's what we do, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
anybody who's trying to advance to that next level and do any kind of a rental, not only that, but there's the whole tax side of things. Do they need to do a 1031 exchange? I mean, especially if they're coming off any land, like we all deal with farmers in Minnesota.
Yeah.
There are 1031 exchanges available to them that, just because their accountant or they have an accountant doesn't mean they're looking out for their tax strategy. So a realtor knows a little bit about all of that and can be very helpful. But tell us a little bit about why you chose Tampa St. Pete.
Yeah. So, to Sharon's point related to that, I was considering how, if you're, going further now north, it is a little cooler. Now I'm not, in the panhandle, obviously, but I definitely did take that into consideration. For me, when I was kind of scouting the areas, like deciding on where I was going to go, it was really kind of vibe. And I love the vibe of Sarasota in your area, Laurie. And I also love St. Pete and Tampa, and Clearwater. I mean, it just there. Any of it could have been a great choice, right? So, I also, one of the things that Tampa Bay has that is unique to both of your markets is, and this is going to speak to a lot of Minnesotans' hearts, is how seriously sports are taken, right? Professional sports. So we have the Buccaneers, we have the Lightning, which is hockey, and the Rays, baseball, and so that's right in Tampa Bay. So I think, if you don't want to lose your teams, Tampa Bay is definitely a great destination to have access to those.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Yeah. And, the other thing is there are so many different zones. Like, I would just say it's really diverse in what kind of vibe you're looking for. This area just has all of them. So they've got, the upscale, if you want to be, South Tampa, Hyde Park, or, some areas of Clearwater. They have the more, down to earth kind of, beachy, lazy life. There's, the same with the shopping, same with the do you want it to be walkable, or, are you just looking for, kind of like that 3-bedroom bungalow, that's just going to be in its own neighborhood. And so just so much diversity in the zones
You
there.
have a
And
bar vibe. Like we don't have a bar vibe for young
yeah,
people here.
yep,
So, I
yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
won't count it out. I know where there's spots, right? But
yeah,
you definitely have a different vibe
for sure. Yeah.
in Tampa. The whole boardwalk. Isn't there like a Tampa Bay walk or
Yes. Yeah. And there's like a Pinellas Trail.
Mhm.
That is a bike trail that you can get all the way from St. Pete, all the way past Clearwater, and um,
To
like all the
Dunedin?
way like up to Dunedin. So
Dunedin.
it's just, yeah. And then even, if you want to do things like kayaking and um, parasailing, those types of things, they're just right along the beach. And, the other thing I wanted to point out is just one thing that we do, our areas all have in common is that this kind of whole zone on the west side of Florida, that is generally where Midwesterners are looking. So,
Yeah,
we're east side up states, oftentimes go to the east side of Florida. The
true. Yeah.
Midwest often is looking right along this corridor, all the way from Clearwater down to Marco. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's not exclusively that way by any means, but it is the majority of the people are coming from the Midwest and not very
Mm-hmm.
far from, like, I think the furthest person I've seen here is maybe Kentucky, no, Nebraska. Like they don't come
Mm-hmm.
from the West Coast of the United States here very
Right.
much. Yeah, I don't know if,
Yeah, I think a lot of them go to Arizona.
yeah, they're
Yeah,
Arizona's
they want that
AZ
dry heat.
is what they call it, right? So how did Sarasota, no, sorry, Tampa, I'm stuck
Mhm.
on my area,
Yeah.
Tampa bounce back from the storms, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty impressive. Definitely, it takes time. A lot of the homes that took a lot of water in, it almost. I agree with you that you can actually get construction done so much faster in Minnesota, which almost seems counterintuitive when you think we have a whole
Yeah,
season that is a lot colder. But it just seems like it was kind of slow in getting a lot of these rebuilt. They
I
obviously
think they
tore a
were
lot
too
of them down.
busy. They were just
Yeah,
they were cut
overwhelmed.
too thin.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were just
Yeah,
Materials.
yeah, yeah.
Materials were a big thing too.
And work, yeah. And I think, as far as getting the cleanup, that part was pretty impressive. As far as, people being able to really do rehab and, of their properties, it just seemed like contractors were stretched thin and it just took forever and ever and ever. But nicely, this past season, finally, most of those homes seem like they're pretty much ready to sell. I actually had a listing that was ready to sell right before the hurricane hit, and she had to take it off the market. And so she went through a lot of pain getting that ready, and did not end up selling it for
yeah.
nearly what she was listing it for before the hurricane.
Yeah, there's I would
So
call hurricane fatigue here a bit.
Do
yes, for
I,
sure.
I'm not sure if either of you or your areas have what they call the 50% rule. Have you heard
Mm-hmm.
of that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess I wasn't sure if it was
Yes, as
area
far as
specific or
damage
not.
goes. Yes, it
Right.
depends
And
on the
that's
municipality.
right. And I think a lot of people don't realize that when they are looking in flood zones, because I've had people, they're like, oh, we don't care, we'll self-insure, or, if another hurricane hits, we'll just, go ahead and rebuild. But what they don't understand is if that property, according to the assessed value, if it is destroyed more than 50%, they have to build to today's standards. And
Mm-hmm.
that could be a huge expense that their insurance may or may not cover.
Again, another little
Mm-hmm.
tidbit that we've learned along the way. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, very good.
Yes.
And Tampa really is a lot closer to your whole Disney side. And
Mm-hmm.
I did want to touch on all three of ours. Compare us to the villages, because everybody hears about the villages. And
Right.
I would just say, I have a lot to say about that, but you start first, Danella.
Well, I've shown quite a few homes actually up in the villages, and so gotten a feel for that. And again, that's its own world, right? I mean, I think that we're identifying that in each of our markets being very different from each other too. But yeah, I think there's definitely a age demographic that tends to go toward the villages, and uh, it doesn't. It's not super close to like an airport. I mean, they have to go to Orlando as well. It's a lot of kind of golfers and golf cart drivers, and which
Drive
is fun
for
for if
hours.
that's what people want. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
And I mean, so like my area, and again, there's so many different zones, but it's definitely just has everything going on. Like whatever it is that you want to do, it's accessible. And referencing the airport, Tampa Bay Airport, I have to say, it is phenomenal. It is so, with all the flying back and forth that I do, and I know you guys do too, it is the fastest airport, and just very efficient every single time, consistently. I've never had like, oh, this is just such a nightmare today. It's just such a well organized airport. So I got to brag about that a little bit too.
Yeah, brag on Tampa
Yeah.
Airport. And then there's one in St. Pete too, right? What's the
Mm-hmm.
one little one?
Yes.
Yeah.
St. Pete, Clearwater, yes. And then Sarasota obviously has theirs. And I've
We'll
actually
fly,
flown in and out of that one too.
right, because we'll
SOQ.
fly Allegiant, right? And doesn't
Mm-hmm.
Allegiant go into the smaller one over by St. Pete?
Yes, it does. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And Sharon, do you have,
Fort Myers is adding on right now.
I
So
know,
that's been pretty exciting. But
all have great airports.
I know the
Mm-hmm.
only bad thing about Fort Myers at this point is there are no direct flights. So if you're flying out to Vegas, we have to go up to Kansas City for a stop, or, they just direct us. So there's no, direct flights, to other bigger hubs, except Minnesota,
Although Minnesota, you can, yeah.
Right. And now that
But it is there.
Sun Country got bought out by Allegiant, we're just kind of waiting. But with the bigger airport, we're excited to see what happens there to try to get to some places with more places with direct flights.
Well, you and I share Punta Gorda, and Punta Gorda, it's got an airport that is expanding, and we're going to go Punta Gorda, then Sarasota, then Fort Myers. Sorry, but I try to avoid Tampa because that's a long drive for me to get up to Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
But when we do go to Tampa, we simply rent the car to get down and then we return the car. But we've got some great choices for airports. So I'm in an airport within 40 minutes. Done. I'm
Mm-hmm.
in the terminal, getting to my gate. Like it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
And it's nice
Nice.
to pick up family too. I have specific people that need to be within, so many miles of an airport. And, with having those two options, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. Danella,
Mm-hmm.
talk to us a little bit about the pricing and how, Mark, again, because we all got impacted.
Right.
And
For sure. And, pricing was really escalating quickly around those years. And what we have found is, and I'll just reference, really kind of a split market. The single family pricing, you can buy, median price right now is around 433 in Tampa. And, the single family homes, you can still buy something for 350 if that's what you're looking for. But obviously, that runs the gamut because there are a lot of high ticket homes, a lot of new construction, and a lot of those hurricane homes. I mean, people just came in, bought them, tore them down, and put a big, huge monster house that they can, a mansion that they'll be able to walk to the beach. And so, then you look at millions for that. And the condo market is really where the prices have come down 16% in the last 3 years. So that's pretty significant. They sit on the market, and you can definitely get some really good deals on getting into the condos. Market time. Mm-hmm.
Sharon, do you have a few less condos right now? Because some of yours just got.
On Fort Myers Beach, yes.
Okay.
But for the most part,
Cape Coral, no.
yeah, not Cape Coral really didn't. I mean, anything that got some water on the lower level has been repaired. But those milestone inspections are a big deal, especially, you get to those big high rises and they're figuring for the future, for the long
Yes, they are.
haul and
Yeah.
what's going to happen. So you've got some pretty hefty HOAs on those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Danella, I'm sorry I cut you off. Go ahead. And
Oh
by
no,
the
I
way,
was
the
just gonna
sun is coming
ask.
out and shifting my light here, you guys. I don't know.
Oh, getting a little
Like,
darker. Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah,
It'll
kind of extending on, the HOA fees, talking about insurance. And so, we flood insurance, but then also homeowners insurance. And I think, one of the tips that I would give to people when they're considering their purchase is homeowners insurance is a lot less expensive if you have a property that passes the 4-point inspection.
yeah.
You get discounts for that. And so that is the roof, HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. And so there's a separate inspection for that in Florida. And when you get a good inspection report, that will actually save you some money on
Yeah.
insurance, as well that the but as well as, when you're buying any of the newer properties or new construction, which is so affordable because, they just do these huge developments and you can really get a brand new or just a couple-year-old home. But you say they actually apply separate discounts to homes that are less than 10 years old.
They really do. Yeah.
Huge way to save money. And so looking at the whole picture, not just the home price, like what's the actual affordability when, do you have an HOA policy or not? Are you getting discounts on your homeowner's insurance? And, if you do buy into an HOA, basically your structural insurance is going to be covered in that, similar to the Minnesota market as
A
well. So,
master policy, right.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But again, so important to work with a realtor, and we're all a couple decades into this career here because we will encourage you in Florida, it's standard 15-day inspection, which I just love. I actually like the Florida purchase agreement, the way it's written a lot. And so if you can get that 4-point inspection or full inspection done, and my guy does them at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to get your quotes. You got to know what you're looking at for insurance, right? So I think that there's deals that fall apart when people aren't ready. So you got to have somebody qualified to look at all that. And we're all capable of putting you on a what I call a window shopping experience, where we do a customized home search for you, and it comes to your email however many times a week you'd like it or daily. And you can go through and look at them, and you really get to window shop the properties and feel a lot more comfortable with looking at the market. And then we also can be really in tune with you to say, look, right now things are jumping because maybe the interest rate adjusted a little bit, and for whatever reason things are jumping. Sharon, did you
Mm-hmm.
have any questions for Danella on her market before I pass it over to me?
I don't think so. I think we're
It's a
good.
good recap. So one thing about Fort Myers Beach, and I don't know about Estero, Bonita Springs, Marco Island, but I think I know Marco. And you got your Clearwater St. Pete, is you guys go really tall with your condos. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that can be a beautiful thing. It can take people by surprise too when they're condo shopping because it's a long way to look down.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. And I don't know about, it's probably not all of Sarasota, but we tend to be not as tall. And so I'm going to just kind of wing it here from my end. Um, I found where I settled here because I started out in we went camping right after Ian. It was 2023, January 1st. We came down in our fifth wheel from Minnesota. We started near Marco Island, and we got a campsite for 1 month in each location. Because of the damage, they were hard to get a 3-month stay. But they had, so I started over by Marco, and actually, I was in Chokoloskee, which is by Everglades City. I think you know the story. Okay. And I loved it. The temperatures were great. It was so nice. Um, but there's not a lot of beaches there unless you get out into the 10,000 islands. So if you have a boat, you're going to go fishing, you're going to go out, you're fine. If you want to go, I think it's called blue stone crab hunting or something, it's all good. I don't eat seafood per se, so I eat like whitefish only. And I'm just sad. So I had to get on to Marco Island. I'm gonna kind of talk about the good things. I hope I don't slam it, but got on to get Marco Island to go to a beach. You gotta find a place to park and you had to pay. So unless you're living there, it's going to be hard to get to the beach. So my whole theme was I want to be able to go biking and I want to be able to get to a beach. So my next month out of Everglades City, Chokoloskee Island, was up in North Fort Myers. I again struggled to get to the beach. We did go out onto Sanibel to see the recovery. Of course, that was doable actually, but takes a while. And I don't know about you if you've biked in North Fort Myers and just the area. To go biking on the road is a little scary, I'm not going to lie. So we kept looking for areas to go biking, and we found at Pinellas Trail when our next month was up in Tampa area. We were in Largo or Indian Rocks. But that was two of our big things there. So I picked Venice and Sarasota because we have something called the Legacy Trail, very similar to the Pinellas Trail. And I really think, Sharon, they're going to develop a trail down there in Fort Myers. There's probably one that I don't know about, but I couldn't find it. So biking was big, and then just access to the beach really quick. So I'm in the middle of you two, and I get to pick the highlights of what Venice was for me, and that's all of Sarasota. Now we have just below Danella there, it's Longboat Key, and then it runs to Siesta Key, and that's all the Sarasota.
Love the Siesta Key Beach.
Anna Maria Island, right? All right in there in that northern Sarasota, Bradenton area. But what's interesting is Sarasota itself isn't going to have the beach, just right. You have to get out to your islands, just like you all, right? That's why they call it Fort Myers Beach. But Fort Myers itself is more like on the intercoastal way, right?
It is. Yeah.
So we all connect.
We do. And the funny thing is we have the best of both. Well, I mean, it does take us some time, but seriously, we go down to Marco or up to Siesta Key and we're almost in the middle. So it's like, where do we want to go today? And they're, both beautiful.
Boating is something we didn't touch on, but you can become a member of Freedom Boat Club and you can go out of Marco Island when you belong. I looked at it because it's Marco Island, Fort Myers, and Punta Gorda was all within the same membership. I think it's anywhere really.
The Cape Coral, they have a place in Cape Coral too down.
Very nice. Okay, is that by Rum Runners or something?
It is. Yeah.
Okay. So dropping names, that's one place I know. So for me, I don't know, you can maybe see him. I'm a sailor, so I have like my sailing earrings on, and I really wanted access to that intercoastal way and maybe some bays. And for me, that's why Sarasota, Venice turned out to be the ticket. Now, also, certain parts of that are going to be a little bit more affordable. Certainly Longboat Key, Anna Maria Island, Siesta Key, those are all very
big money.
Take your breath away. Yeah, I'm happy to show houses out there anytime. Love showing. But during season, I'm going to talk about the traffic. It can take an hour on and off of Anna Maria Island. A lot of people fly in and they're vacationing on Anna Maria Island, but they are probably going to stay out there the entire time. So for me, that was so key. I love going up to Tampa and I love going to Fort Myers Beach. In Fort Myers, you have the Key West Express. You get down to Keys. I mean,
I was going to say that is so fun. I've done that a few times.
Yep. So the life here on the water is just, it's what draws. I mean, you have the best picture behind you, Danella, and I have Venice Pier behind me. This is actually a print that I bought from one of the photographers in the area.
This is Indian Rocks Beach, just north of St. Pete Beach.
And this is my house.
Yeah.
Yay. Beautiful.
The best man is gone, or the Amazon guy is gone. But and so the price ranges. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I was able to afford it because we still have a place up north. And so when that happens, because Sharon, you go up north and stay, but your main house is
My
in,
only house is in Florida. I'm fortunate. My son lives in the metro area and he's got a car for me to use. So
a
I put
condo
more
up there with my,
miles. I put more miles on his car than he does.
I know. So we all have, so I still have a place way up north, and Danella, you have a place, you have both places too. And then again, we fly back and forth all the time. Well, we wanted to keep both places. So our price point, I'm in that lower price point, right? I bought a manufactured house and I had to do a lot of research about it. Um, so a couple things about Venice in particular is Venice is a man-made island. So because that intercoastal way got dug out in the 1960s and they actually they put the dirt, it's fun, you can go shark tooth hunting right here in your yard, right onto the island, what is now the island. So we have right here in my house, I'm at 20-foot elevation, but I'm less than a mile to the beach and I'm on the waterway. So that was big to me. And so
Super affordable
yeah.
option for
So
people who
my
are like, I can't buy a $500,000 house down
yeah.
there, you know.
Yeah, and there are 100 and no, there's 141 listings just on the island that are houses, and of those, there's 74 that are 500,000 and less. But a lot of them are right in my community because we were at ground zero for Milton, so we're going to have to get past the hurricane fear. Here, it hit directly onto Venice Beach. But I had already bought. So here I stood. I wasn't here, but during the storm. But here stood my 1967 double wide manufactured house that a lot of people kind of get like will throw up in their mouth over, right? These houses have been here since 1967. Most of them survived just fine. And
Wow.
the newer manufactured houses are going to cost you 350 to put on a lot, but they're hurricane resistant. So I just want to talk about that lower side of the budget, although I love selling. I sold a place on the island to a gal who now is short-term renting. Oh my gosh, she loves it. She golf carts to the beach, she golf carts to the bar. We never have to leave the island. So I have this phrase called OTI, or on the island. And I don't like to leave the island. I do all my shopping here. I don't want to be in that traffic outside of the island. So I'm kind of like, my wish list was everything except for the brand new house, right?
Mhm.
So I came in on that lower side of the transactions, but it's so affordable. I mean, and you all have them. You have manufactured parks, Sharon, and you do too, Danella. They're
Mhm.
all out
For
there.
sure.
I just
Yes.
happen to have one that actually has that Gulf access, but is not in a flood zone, which is kind of like a unicorn. And yeah, and people, so mine is more old Florida. So you talked about how
Mhm.
Naples is really
Yes.
upscaled and Tampa has really upscaled all
Mhm.
sorts of cute areas. I actually love, love, love. There's one area that has just trailers everywhere in Naples for like food truck trailers. It's really cool. Where we are just strictly old Florida here on the island. So, three bridges get you on and off, so you get to go where you want right away. There is the Legacy Bike Trail and the Venice Inside Trail on the island. There's the beaches, and we have free parking and tons of public parking. So again, my wants and needs list was completely different than so many others. And I get it that some people are just not going to want to do a manufactured house, but I would say give that a second thought because I'm from Wisconsin originally and then moved to Minnesota at age 16. I was always familiar with manufactured houses in the form of Wausau homes. They're a
Mhm.
very quality stick-built home in a manufactured facility, and then they bring them out. And what I've learned about insurance is if it's a double wide and it has that roof that ties it together, you're a whole lot better. Can't get past the fact that every house could be damaged by a storm, but we want to have the
True.
insurances, right? Unless
Absolutely.
unless you have a 2000 or newer house for manufactured house and probably age too, Danella, like you're talking about the
Mhm.
construction
For
age
sure.
matters.
Definitely.
Manufactured homes, I can get a policy on mine. I'm not gonna though. My God, so expensive.
Taking your chances. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I have fire and liability, and then we looked at a policy and we passed our 4-point inspection. Most of them do. Um, but I'm talking $7,000 a year.
Yeah.
for my hurricane wind. And it
Mhm.
only covers 60 or 70,000. So I just want to be,
Because you're right on the island,
yeah. Well,
Gotta pay to play. Pay to
yeah,
play.
yeah. So I think it's the age of the home. The ones here that are year 2000 and old and newer, they're 4,000. They're like everybody else's. Every house out there is going to be 4,000, I feel, for wind. They call it a wind event because it could be a tornado in the hurricane. Um, and again, like you said, Sharon, Venice never got hit
Right.
before. So they're
Same
like,
as St. Pete Beach, right?
yeah.
Yeah, was not
So
expected.
I figure we're done. It's like that movie of Garth where I don't know if you remember Garth, but the plane hits the house and he goes, we definitely want to buy it because what are the chances that that'll ever happen again? Well, it could, but I was willing to roll the dice. And I think that you just have to find what you're comfortable with. And certainly an upper level condo is going to be a lot safer in general. If you
Yeah.
hit any storm, any tornado that hits you ground zero, you're going to get damage.
Right.
But
Yeah, even last year when Milton came, because obviously we're 300 yards from Charlotte Harbor and it was
yeah,
coming west. But there was more damage from all the tornadoes. I think they had 130 some tornadoes pop up. It was crazy.
Mm.
Yeah, floodwaters came up 3/4 of the way our driveway, but we know
Ooh,
what surge we can, what we can
deal
withhold
with.
now.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. And
right.
we were ground zero and had absolutely no flooding here, not any at all. Now, I have a map of the island that we all can pull it off the MLS on our mobile app. And as realtors, we can show the flood zone. And
Hmm.
orange is
Yeah.
good, is what I know. So,
Hmm.
right by the beach, all of us are going to have flood zones, right?
absolutely.
You're
For
on the
sure.
beach, and I'm talking on the beach or within 3 blocks.
Right.
But
Definitely.
other areas, very, very hit and miss. You have to look at a flood map, otherwise you're not going to see it. And I think that's
Hmm.
going to be super important to our buyers for so many reasons. Um, and our buyers will turn into sellers at some point, often,
Hmm.
because times change. Maybe you want to upgrade, or
Hmm.
you decide you like a different neighborhood better, or you're going to head back to another. Maybe it was a job that relocated you. So it's important to know what your house is going to resell at too, and to not be in a flood zone would be best, or have that transferable policy, as Sharon said.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm noticing too, I've got some lots that are for sale, and you get these investors that come in and they want to buy your lots for a very reduced price, but as soon as they find out it's in any type of flood zone, they're out. So a lot of
Mm.
builders are kind of shifting, they're shifting inland to build because then they can build the more affordable and without those policies.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, because they don't want to be stuck with them either.
Right.
Hmm. And Laurie, you brought up the resale, and I think it's important for people from Minnesota to understand that property taxes have what's called a Save Our Homes program in Florida, and it's entirely different. And whenever I'm talking to a buyer, one of the first things I say to them is, when you're looking at a listing and it has property tax listed, don't assume that that applies to you,
Right.
because the in Florida, property tax is reassessed at time of every sale, and but when you are an owner and you go ahead and sell it, you actually get to take a benefit of uh, homesteaded taxes that have been minimized, and they're capped to not raise so high. So you get to actually carry that credit onto a new property, and that doesn't happen in Minnesota. So
Right, because they
it's
enacted that just a few years ago. And of course, in 2014,
mhm.
Minnesota took off the cap. And I've done
Yes.
many talks about that. I actually have argued with the assessors, and they told me in Anoka County that I'd get so much for my duplex. And I argued them and showed
Mhm.
them, by the way, we
Yeah.
are licensed and can help you do that. Like, as
Mhm.
far as we can pull a market analysis for you. And it's not an appraisal, but it's strong data. And I took it to him and said, I can't sell it for what you got. And 2 years later, I sold it and I didn't get what he thought I was going to
Yeah.
get.
Yeah.
So that stinks what Minnesota did with their taxes, that they took off the cap of how much they could raise it.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a whole nother.
Right. Well, especially for homesteaded
Yep,
taxes, and so there is the cap in Florida, and so
it's currently great.
they
It's great.
encouraging people to homestead rather than
And then you can
investors.
port it, you can portable it to the next house, like
Right,
you were
Yes.
right.
saying.
Hmm.
And
Now,
then there's been a lot of the talk about, getting rid of the property taxes for residents. So, it'll be interesting to see. I think that's going to be on the ballot.
it
Um,
is.
but monies need to come from somewhere. So
I know
unfortunately,
that's what I'm like. I don't even know how that's gonna really
right.
work, but we'll see, I
Yeah.
guess.
Unfortunately,
My,
the people that are, they're seasonal down here are the ones that are going to get hit, and obviously the businesses as well. So,
yeah, the
um,
money's got to come from somewhere.
right. So we'll see. I mean, and we know, you're taxed down here, there's no state income tax, which is
Right.
great for retirees, but you are taxed on the things you use. You buy a new
Mhm.
vehicle, you've got higher taxes, so anything you do use, you are taxed on.
Yep.
So it always seems like it comes out in the wash at the end of the day.
For sure. Yeah. Just shifts
But
around maybe.
overall, I would say it's a lot more affordable than I thought it would be. That's just for me. Again, I am in an HOA with the pool and the pickleball court and the harbor, and um the amenities down here can be phenomenal, right?
Oh gosh,
In my case,
resort style living.
it
There's
is.
so many
It's super.
communities right now that's what they're building.
And
Mhm.
mine, just to speak
Yes.
of my own, since I'm in an HOA, and mine feel like detached townhomes. That's because these houses are so nice now as manufactured homes.
Hmm.
People have done such, you
Hmm.
can do additions to them, and so they're very, very pretty. But 255 a month includes my because we own the lot. It comes as an ownership package with the property. Very big difference there. If you're in a place where you have to rent your lot plus the HOA, you could be looking at 1,500 to 1,800 is what I've heard.
Hmm.
Oh,
But
for sure.
255 here when you own. So, and we are owner operated, meaning we don't have corporation here that bought us out, or we are our own incorporation. We're actually a co-op. So, 255. And then, you figure about 120 or whatever for your electric on top of that. And
Hmm.
you get
And
pay
you,
your own.
and
Really
you know,
affordable.
it is when you get into some of those communities that you do not own the land,
Oh,
somebody can come in. And I know that there was a community down in the Naples area that was looking to come in and purchase, that park community. And they were going to offer everybody that was there X amount of dollars. But overall, I mean, if you were, you're going to be in there a long time, you're going to end up paying most of that back to them because they're going to really jack up those prices.
yep. And that's the luxury. You're in a development, Sharon. You have a lot. You look like you have a vacant lot behind you. It looks
Oh gosh,
gorgeous.
we are the most northwest corner of Cape Coral, and my whole I have we're the only house on our side of the block. There's three houses in back of us and three houses like within, the next block. I mean, it's very desolate out here.
And don't you
But
have like a nature area or something?
we do. So we abut up to the Charlotte Harbor Preserve,
That's
and
what it is.
talk about wildlife. I was walking one morning and I
Oh,
saw the
fun.
largest wild boar come out at me. He didn't
Oh,
charge me, but he
that's
was
right. I
not.
remember you talking about that. You wished
Yes.
you had something on you.
Yes, it was
Yeah.
crazy. And then I saw an outline of a rattlesnake halfway across the road. So I decided walking at early dawn is not the best. Wait till the sun is fully out, so all the critters usually go back in. But they did build the most northwest boat ramp, and that opened up about a month and a half ago. Sad to say, it's 80 minutes to open water, so we have very little traffic. Now, they have talked about busting through, but when you try to bust through mangroves, it's act of Congress and then
Oh
some.
yeah.
Army
Oh
Corps
yeah.
of Engineers isn't,
Those days are gone. They're not gonna
yeah,
let you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been quiet, and which is fine with us. I know some people are waiting for that busting out so that their property values go up crazy, but I'm okay quiet for a while.
Hmm. Well, and you're talking about wildlife, and we haven't even talked about alligators yet.
I
And
know we need to. I think people think about them.
yeah, Minnesotans, I do hear that comment like, oh, I'm just worried about the alligators. And
My sister, I'll call her out on it. She's petrified of coming. She got here and then realized, oh, there aren't really right by you, right? Because we don't have a
right,
pond. But
right, yeah.
pond.
Yeah. People swim.
They are in the ponds.
Oh yeah.
I've seen
Yeah.
many alligators,
But they're
and
probably going to stay in the pond, don't
right,
go down and tease it.
No, we have
right.
Crystal Lake. Yeah, we have a Crystal Lake, which is just beyond the boat ramp. And um, there's 4 or 5 big alligators in there. And you see people, they built a beautiful beach at the end of it. People are swimming and they have signs posted with snakes and alligators, and people are
You would not catch me swimming there, but
Floridians don't care.
yeah, I think when they do all of the new developments, there are a lot of ponds. They build ponds into those developments. But what what I've consistently seen is that they build the houses up, and then there's an embankment down to the pond, and it's not that that alligators can't come out of there. Clearly, at some points they do that, but for the most part, like they're staying down in that area. And most people in those developments tend to get the the wrought iron fence around, so you're keeping your yard, just to make sure that they're not coming into your yard. Obviously, some homes don't have that, but I think that's just the key is, if you're in your yard, if you have a fenced yard, that really alleviates any worry. And then when you're walking around, just pay attention. But I can't say that I've been walking down the street and I saw an alligator near me. Like that hasn't happened.
I golf on the island, OTI,
Mhm.
at Venice Lakes Golf Course, which is right up by the beach. City of Venice owns almost all the property up by the water, and except for a few properties that obviously are on the water. But they're out on that golf course, but they don't want anything to do with us. We don't
Right. So
we're not
true.
on their diet really, so I don't like get
Don't
right.
carry a stake around with you.
No, and I don't tap its tail like that one golfer did. I mean,
Right.
he knew what he was
Yeah.
doing, but we just kind of watch, we take pictures with it behind us.
Oh
But
yeah.
and they
It's
will
always
sneak
good to
out.
share.
And they will sneak out onto the beach during a drought. We are in a drought right now. We finally got some rain this morning, but not much. And it's a drought right now. But just to finish on that, though, Danella, we are living in kind of the tropics, and maybe not so much the jungle, but it's tropical here. So there are all sorts of funny animals around. We had in Venice Airport, which is a small community, little airport like Blaine or whatever.
Mhm.
There was a shipment of parakeets that accidentally got opened up
Oh, wow.
many years ago. So we have these green parakeets that just kind of fly around the area, and they come all
Oh, that's so cool.
together. They sit on the wire and they talk to you, and it's kind of fun and interesting. And you can go boar hunting if you really want to, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Especially interstate. They have a lot of that kind of hunting. Yeah.
They
Well,
do. Yeah.
alligator hunting is huge, and you get a big gator, and it's worth a decent amount of money. My girlfriend,
Yeah.
who's the mortgage loan officer in Key West, her husband gator hunts, and I'm
Mhm.
like, well, need
Yeah.
a new pair of boots.
Yeah.
I did go to the Peace River, which is between myself and you, Sharon. It's the one
Mhm.
that comes into like Punta Gorda area, Charlotte Harbor.
Yeah.
And I went way up into the center of the state kind of area, and can't
Oh, Lake Okeechobee.
no, Wauchula.
Oh,
So
okay,
there's like
yes, yes,
Arcadia and then there's
yeah.
Wauchula. And so I can't believe I did it yet, but I went shark tooth hunting in the river. And what I didn't realize is you really have to canoe quite a ways. So there's that. But as I was in the front of the canoe on the way back, I saw these little lines of bubbles underneath the water. And it seemed like that line of bubbles was coming at us. And so I'm like, can we
Uh-oh.
trying to paddle away a little bit? I went back and Googled it, and sure enough, that's the stuff that what the air comes out of their eyes. That was an
Yeah.
alligator underneath there.
They
I
there's
don't want to know that.
Yeah, they have a great I think it's out of Arcadia airboat tour. Now we took one down in the Everglades and we were a little bit bummed that we didn't see a whole lot of gators down there, but he said it's kind of seasonal. But they did say the airboat rides out of on the Peace River are really good and a lot of wildlife. So I think we're going to do that in the next couple weeks here.
I recommend it, but we
Mhm.
went with a guide It was,
Yeah.
and these guys know that we're just not on the main diet, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
wrap it up for me and tell me your favorite, very, very favorite thing, one or two items of the area you work and what you most brag about. Go, Sharon.
I just absolutely love, like I said, the centralization to where we can go either north or south, the beaches. Um, the community is really great. There's a lot of Midwestern people here, so I have met people literally that are from my area, like you said, from my area. You know, we start talking, and before you know it, it's like we know so and so, and it's just it is a sense of community. Bars, fine dining to dive bars, and I love all of it. So
Everything in
Yep.
between, right? Okay.
Hmm.
Very
absolutely.
cool. Cool,
Yep.
cool. Danella?
Yeah, I think, coming from Minnesota, we all are fine driving, 2, 3 hours to get to the lake, to get up north, right? And so, that's the lake in Tampa, and all of our areas really, the lake is the Gulf of Mexico, and being, 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes from your front door. And, um, just bringing that parallel again, the fishing, a lot of Minnesotans are about fishing. Fishing
Yeah.
is incredible, world class in the Gulf. And I myself have done some deep sea fishing, and I caught a 7-foot sailfish one time, and a 4-foot barracuda, and snapper, and then a bunch of the little ones too. But it's all fun. It's beautiful when you are out on the ocean for the day fishing. So that's one of my
Absolutely.
favorite things. And um, just I love the diversity. I love that there are really so many different zones for so many different lifestyles, with whatever you're looking for. Like there's a
True.
there's a pocket for it. So
Shark teeth. So one of my favorite things is shark tooth hunting, right? To walk along the beach and be able to find, that shark tooth.
cool.
Um, and I am 7 minutes to the beach here because I'm on the
Wow.
island. So these are some of the normal kinds of teeth you might find. And
Mm-hmm.
then you can get little ones too. But I went snorkeling out just in front of Sharky's. It's called Casperson Beach. Oh, one more thing, dog parks. Do you
Yes.
guys have
Mm.
dog
Yeah.
parks? They're
Yes.
big, important things, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So dog parks, we know where they are, and they're going to be in each of our communities. Um, so this is the one I found right. I decided to snorkel, and so it was just right there. This is a rather large tooth. I don't know if you can see it in comparison.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This
Yeah.
is the little tooth. So
Wow.
Love it.
this is what they said was from a bull shark. No,
Oh
mako shark.
wow.
A mako
Okay.
shark. Okay. So that was quite a find. I was snorkeling in 3 feet of water, and I'm like,
Well, I'm
um,
glad you didn't meet the guy who
no,
lost it.
didn't no. And so they lose up to 1,000 teeth per year, I guess, or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But
We
in
were
the
up. Oh, go ahead. I was
no,
gonna
go
say
ahead.
we were up in Siesta Key Beach between Christmas and New Year's this year, and we didn't realize, but they caught 1,000-pound bull shark up there,
Oh
Yep.
my
The
gosh.
bull
and it was
sharks, I mean,
crazy.
they're out there and people
Yeah.
still swim. They don't I'm not gonna say they never will hurt you, but so here's this one that I found on Casper's, and I went on that Peace
Wow.
River and I found this. Now this is a megalodon, and here's the right way.
Oh.
The reason you could tell is it's got the darker, it comes down more on the gum of the tooth line. It
Oh
comes
wow.
down and it's broken, but it comes all the way down. So there are some fun
Cool.
finds. I'm definitely addicted. This is my number one thing
Mm-hmm.
is to shark tooth hunt. Every time we go to the beach, which is often because we're on the waterway in a harbor, so we have a pontoon boat. I mean, I already talked about the biking, and we're 10 minutes by golf cart to the beach, whatever. I'm on the island. But the thing that I was shocked at is we've talked about how friendly people are.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Mankato State as a college student, and you come back after summer and you get to see all your friends. That is what it is like here. When I get back here, I literally get a little emotional. And I've only been
Oh.
here since 2023, right? Fall of 2023. So I'm that close to people. Like I literally love my neighbors. It is a little bit like the villages in that we have 509 lots in our little community of country club estates, but the villages goes on for counties. It's multiple counties. And in here, we just, we all have our get-togethers, we have our happy hours, we have our dances, we have, those kind of things. And that took me by surprise because our attitude was, well, we'll buy down here, and if we end up not liking it in 2 years, we'll sell.
You found your Florida tribe.
Yes, and I'm never leaving. I might win the lottery and I might get a house on the water, like on the beach kind of water or waterway, but I'm never leaving here. Like I might upgrade my house to something newer that I can get hurricane insurance on. But yeah, I really, that part just surprised me. And the fact that I don't need to be in the really, really dressy environments, and like I don't have to put makeup
be comfortable
in the grocery store, that kind of thing. So
it's just the best when you don't have to open up a lockbox and you've got a snotty nose and your hands are sticking to it. It's just the best. Flip-flops and on your way to showings.
I show up, usually I have it on. You almost always see me in a visor. And I've got my tank top on and my skirt, and I'm either just came in from playing pickleball or I'm leaving. So the lifestyle is, I can see it on your faces. I love Minnesota, I do, but I'm so glad I get to come down to Florida, and the people are so lovely. They're so friendly. Not 100% of them, but 95% of them are.
Yeah, for sure.
Got a lot of attributes to it. So I hope that we've answered some questions. We're going to leave some links eventually when I get this processed, and they're going to be a little bit about statistics, maybe a link to your home search site in your areas. And just know that we're going to work with each other if you don't know the area you want as a consumer, right? We are all good friends. We've all worked together. I'm so blessed to have you two in my life because we're just going to hand them off. If they pick Fort Myers over my area, gosh, go get it. I'm so happy for them.
Let's just help everybody snowbird and live the warm dream down there.
And St. Pete, Clearwater, we've got people that prefer that area, and I love that area. I just, I found my tribe now, so I'm here. But I really can't wait to help some more people find their southern spot to hide, however long that is. For everybody, it could be different. We have rentals. I don't particularly deal in rentals, but I can advise you where to go for that, right?
Yeah. We have an in-house rental company, so that makes it a little easier for me.
That is easier, yes. And otherwise, Danella and I will just hand you off to somebody we trust. We all have our sources. In Minnesota, we all have our teams. So again, based out of Blaine or Andover for you?
Anoka County. My office is Coon Rapids. My house is Blaine.
Yep. And then I'm still putting my shark teeth back in the bottle. Sharon, you're based out of Twin Cities?
Actually, St. Cloud. St. Cloud's my home office, but yeah, I've got a key to any office in the state that RE/MAX results is in.
Awesome. That's pretty nice. And I'm out of the Monticello area. We all deal all of the Twin Cities, but I don't know if you guys probably come up north too, but I do spend about half my time in the Twin Cities and when I'm coming into Minnesota, and half my time way up north. Maybe not in January though. Probably more in the Twin Cities. Otherwise, I'm up in the Brainerd, Gull Lake, and Leech Lake is kind of where I the 371 corridor. But you girls can do those as well, so we all can help you throughout the state. And we've been in business decades, so we have our teams in place. We are the leaders of those teams, but we're happy to help you. Any last parting thoughts?
Absolutely.
No. Move down to sunny South Florida. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous down here.
And even if it's just knowing that you have a getaway waiting for you in January, February, when it's really unbearable in Minnesota.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Fantastic. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you, ladies. Have a wonderful day. Yep. Bye.